Well, hello everyone. Happy Friday. I am back because we have a lot to talk about. There's been a lot released in the past 2 weeks, including 4 of the 5 scare zones. Our final house, Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines. We have our show, Nightmare Fuel is coming back. And there was that little leak and potentially another little park leak today of our final scare zone to discuss. So without further ado, let's start the video. So yes, it's been a very busy 2 weeks full of announcements. It's been a strange way of delivering these announcements, but we'll talk about that later. Like I said, we have our final house, Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines. We have a lot to discuss there. Plus, over the past 2 weeks, we've had 4 of the 5 scare zones announced, kind of piecemealed together over those 2 weeks, but we have some information. There might potentially be icons tied in with those scare zones, so we need to talk about that. And we have Nightmare Fuel Nocturnal Circus. So lots announced. It was an exciting couple weeks and I have thoughts to share. So before we get any further in the video, in case this is the first video you're ever seeing of mine, hi, I am Liz. I am a die-hard Halloween Horror Nights fan. I've been attending the event since 2001. It's my favorite event of the year, and here on my channel I talk about all of the Halloween Horror Nights news, rumors, speculation, announcements, and coming very soon, vlogs from the event. So if you love Halloween Horror Nights, if you love spooky Halloween content in general, make sure to click to subscribe. For my loyal subscribers, thanks for watching yet another video. Let's get into the news. So I'm gonna go a little out of order from what was announced because I wanna talk about our final house announcement, Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines. First, I am wearing my Bride Lives t-shirt because this feels like a sequel to this Monsters house from 2020/2021, The Bride Lives, which was, I think, pretty universally loved amongst the fans. So let's go through the press release and talk about what we can expect in this house. A little bit of a long description from the press release, so stick with me here. The Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines haunted house will introduce guests to an all-new terrifying storyline as they find themselves in the center of the ultimate battle between 2 unexpected alliances of classic female Universal monsters. Fans will encounter Saskia Van Helsing, a new fearless huntress and daughter of revered Abraham Van Helsing, who killed Count Dracula by driving a stake through his heart and destroying his reign of terror. Saskia now faces Dracula's daughter, Countess Marya, who rose from the dead to seek revenge for her father and destroy the Van Helsing bloodline. With a mission to kill, Dracula's daughter, from 1936's Dracula's Daughter, forms a deadly alliance with the She-Wolf, inspired by the 1946 film She-Wolf of London, and a Noxanamun from the 1932 film The Mummy, only to be intercepted by Saskia and an unlikely ally, the Bride of Frankenstein. The terrifying adventure will take guests on a journey between the hunted and the hunters in a life and death battle with only one bloodline left to survive. So the other interesting piece from this is that for the Hollywood version, Slash will be doing the music, but for Orlando, we have Emmy-nominated composer Sarah Barone will create an original score for this all-new haunted house to elevate the experience for guests. And then it gives a little more information about her past, which I'm not gonna go through, but we're gonna have an original score for this house, and obviously this feels like a sequel to The Bride Lives because we've got the Bride of Frankenstein making an appearance, joining forces with all of these women characters from the Universal Monsters, and the rest of it is left unknown. We have no idea what the setting will be for this house. We do know that it should be in one of the new tents in the very back of the park, but that's about all we know. So we know the characters, we know the storyline, but where and when will this be set? That remains to be seen. So a lot left out there for interpretation, a lot left out there for your own imagination, and I think this one has potential. I have heard some rumblings of this seeming like Legends collide, but with the women characters, because it does feel like the same kind of mix. Legends collide had Wolfman, Dracula, and the Mummy, and this has She-Wolf, Dracula's daughter, and a Noxanamun. I see the ties, but I don't think this one's going to be set in Egypt. Even if we see the same type of characters represented, I don't think it's going to feel like that house at all. yeah, I'm keeping all my thoughts and my expectations for a future video where I'm going to go over my hype list, and obviously we do a hype list for RIP Tour podcast as well, so I kind of have to save my thoughts for those episodes, but I am excited for this one. We're going to see. The artwork, which was released today, did not really jump out at me. It's not really grabbing me quite like the Bride Lives did. But for the Bride Lives, we got an entire trailer, which is one of the best trailers they've ever done, in my opinion. So that is hard to live up to. We did not get a video today whatsoever. We just got the description in the press release and a little sentence on social media. So unfortunately, this one did not get a beautiful production for it. I'm optimistic for it. So let me know what you guys think of our final house for Halloween Horror Nights 33. That means we have 6 originals, 4 IPs. However, this one is one of those borderline, kind of leans more original. That argument is even stronger since it didn't get a trailer video and it didn't get specific merch for it, which just tells me it's more of an original. So 7 originals, 3 IPs. It's music to my ears. Well, let's go ahead and move on and talk about those 4 out of 5 scare zones that we got in the past 2 weeks, released on social media, and this one I will go in order. So last Monday we got our first scare zone announcement, and that is Torture Faire. Come one, come all to the Renaissance Fair with the devious theme of medieval torture. Brave the gloriously gory homemade torture devices till you're put out of your misery. Now there's another little tidbit that got added to this scare zone today, but we'll come back to that. So this scare zone is going to be in New York. If you've been paying attention to social media, especially Twitter, there's been some pictures released from a UK press event that has some spoilery type items for these scare zones. I'm not going to include those in these videos just in case people want to go into the event blind, but the pictures are out there if you want to see them, where we got to see some preliminary look at costumes and sets for the scare zone, and it was confirmed that it will be in New York. So as someone who has attended Renaissance festivals quite a bit in the past, when we lived in Texas, there's a huge Renaissance festival in Houston that was amazing. We went every season. I really love the concept of having a Renaissance fair, and the costume, the period pieces, the torture devices. I think it's a great idea for a scare zone, and not really something we've explored before, or at least I feel like it's been a long time since maybe the Islands of Adventure days since we've had something in this vein. So I feel like this one has potential. It's a New York zone. It's going to have a lot of different scare actors in it. This is one of the 2 zones where they just pack the scare actors in because it's a big space. So I feel like this one has a lot of potential. The following day, on Tuesday, we got Swamp of the Undead. In Backwaters, Louisiana, you unwittingly wander onto private property where you're swamped by zombies born from the bodies of other trespassers who were killed and dumped in the nearby bog. And this one, once again, confirmed to be in Central Park. They've already started putting out props. These pictures are all over social media, so you probably have already seen them, but we have props popping up in Central Park. There's half canoes, there's a swamp stand, barrels, your general dock swamp vibes. There's super low fog machines. We assume there's going to be that swamp fog effect where they use the laser to make it look like you're walking on water. This one could be very interesting. We also saw some mask previews at that UK press event. They're going to be grungy, nitty-gritty zombies. These aren't neon zombies. These are gonna be nitty-gritty, gross zombies. So again, high potential in this one. This zone is usually one of the hardest ones to walk through, but I think they can make it scenic. And although it's not the Day of the Dead zone that was rumored, I'm still hopeful they'll put some lanterns in the trees, maybe some firefly type effects, and still make the trees part of the zone, because that is the biggest perk of that area, is having all those built-in trees to add to the spooky atmosphere. Now after Swamp, we had a little bit of a break in scare zone announcements until this week, when we got Duality of Fear. As soon as you enter the gates of Halloween Horror Nights, you must choose a path. Follow Sinister, the manifestation of visceral horror, or follow Surreal, the incarnation of unearthly terror. there had been rumors circling around that maybe we were getting an icon or icons back this year. There just wasn't really anything to support it up until Horror Nights tweeted this. And at first, it seemed like gibberish, especially since they tweeted that the day after the ticket debacle, and personally, I thought they were just trying to distract us. Like, don't look at the tickets, don't think of that. Look at this random tweet that I just made. But turns out, I mean, they could have been doing that. It could have still been part of it. But turns out they were hinting at this pair, Sinister and Surreal. Now, as of recording this on Thursday, July 25th, we don't really have much to go on for these characters. There hasn't been a podcast released yet with some more backstory. So I don't really know, are these two characters? Are they twins? Is it one character with two different identities? Because the way they designed the graphic for this zone, it looks almost like one of the Zodiac characters last year, which had one mask on one direction. I assume it was Gemini, where one mask was one direction, and then when they spun around, it had a different mask on the back of their head, so you couldn't really tell if they were coming or going, and the graphic kind of gives me that vibe. So I don't know if this is one character with split or twins, two characters. I guess we will see with time. Surreal and Sinister, Duality of Fear, taking up our entrance zone. I still think this is going to be a best of introduction zone, so you're going to have Sinister and Surreal there, plus minions from the other scare zones scattered throughout the park right there at the entrance to kind of welcome you to Halloween Horror Nights. Then later the same day, we got our fourth scare zone, Demon Queens. Get caught in an otherworldly hellscape ripped from the darkest corners of your mind. 4 merciless queens loyal to Surreal rule, surrounded by hordes of fanatical followers. So this zone is Surreal's zone, and she has 4 queens who worship her, follow her, and I assume a bunch of minions. This one's going to be in Hollywood, so I assume the 4 queens and Surreal will have some sort of platforms. We did see one image from that UK press event of a stage-looking, probably centerpiece of the zone, and then there'll be plenty of minions on the ground to scare you. When this was released, all of us were like, wait, so Surreal has a scare zone, where is Sinister's scare zone? And lo and behold, today, with the full website update, we got Torture Faire's description with a little bit of a reboot to include Sinister. So Torture Faire is Sinister's, Demon Queens is Surreal's. So my guess is that at the entrance, you'll see both of them, and then you will have to choose thy fate and either go straight through Dead Zone of Minions, make it through the giant mass of humanity in front of the Music Plaza area, and eventually make it to New York to get to Sinister Zone, or you make a quick right and you're in Surreal Zone there in Hollywood. So those are the 4 announced zones. However, there is still a 5th zone that as of filming this, we are waiting for. We already know what it's going to be for a couple different reasons. One, last week there was a little bit of a leak where Universal accidentally pushed a blog post that they meant for their employees way early. So the blog post date was 7/25, which is today as I'm filming this, but they posted it on 7/15. It included the final house, it included all of the scare zones. Most of us in the community who hang out on Twitter saw that release. We already knew what the 5th zone would be, but then to add to it, today, construction popped up in San Francisco with a very obvious prop. So the final scare zone that we're waiting to be announced is going to be Blumhouse. It has not been announced yet. Not quite sure what they're waiting for at this point, but as of recording, it has not been announced. Most likely they'll announce it tomorrow. I didn't want to wait to film this video for that last piece. So whenever it does get released, I'll include that information in my next video, but we all know it's the worst kept secret. It's gonna be Blumhouse there in San Francisco. So I assume we'll see a slew of Blumhouse characters thrown in there, and your guess is good as mine as far as who will be there, but I know you guys have already shared who you'd like to see. So I think there's some excitement for the zone. Not so much for me personally, but I'm glad that it's in San Francisco and not Hollywood, because San Fran, I tend to just zoom through anyway, so works out just fine for me. Now, of course, we will still have the Death Eaters there in Diagon Alley. They don't really get independently announced. Finally, we have our show. We have Nightmare Fuel Nocturnal Circus. Step right up to the dark circus, a new nightmare that carries with it a sinister cause. Get trapped in a thrilling spectacle of pyro and aerialists to the beat of pulse-pounding rock rhythms. Nightmare Fuel returns for its 4th year at Halloween Horror Nights. I posted this on my social media and got very mixed reviews back. You were either super stoked it was coming back, you guys were ready, you were excited, you were posting in your stories, ready to see it back, or you were like, Nightmare Fuel again? Like, there was no in between. I feel like it was very polarizing in responses. As I shared on social media, I have not watched this show in person. I have seen clips of it on YouTube. I'm not even sure I've watched a full show on YouTube, but I've watched clips of it. For me personally, it's just such a time crunch to try to see everything I want to see in a night that packing myself like a sardine into that stadium, that stage, is usually very low on my priority list. I toughed it out for Bill and Ted's for many years, but that theater is cramped, it is hot, it takes a long time to see a show. You have to get there early in order to be seated, you sit there for a while, then you have the show. It can easily eat up an hour of your night, and that's an hour I'd rather be out in the scare zones taking in the scares, and so it hasn't been a priority for me. I doubt it'll be a priority for me this year. Maybe on a cold night in October I will finally make it happen. I do know, however, that this show has huge fans of it. On the closing night last year, if you go back and watch the vlog from the final night of Halloween Horror Nights that I posted last year, I'll link it up above. The line to get into that final show was wrapped all the way to San Francisco. I don't think there's any way all of those people got into the show. And then as Sarah and I were going around doing houses, we were over by Transformers and we could hear the crowd cheering for the final Nightmare Fuel show from Transformers across the lake. Like, I feel for all the people in those Bell apartments because their apartments had to have been rattling from having that show happening right in their backyard. Even if it's not your cup of tea, I can promise you it has diehard fans, and I know some of you out there are super excited to see it again, and so for all of you, I'm excited for you. I'm really hoping you guys can't hear the landscapers outside right now because so that's where we're at for now. We have all 10 houses, we have 4 out of the 5 scare zones, and we have our show. The only things we're really waiting for at this point are the final scare zone, Blumhouse, and our food and drinks. I think that's the main thing we're waiting for. Give us those food menus and let us start making our food lists because I cannot wait. It's almost here, just over a month to opening night, and then it's gonna be Vlogpalooza on here. So I hope you guys have been enjoying announcement and rumor season, and spooky season is right around the corner. So until next time, stay safe and stay spooky. Bye.